Well,
She just sent me a picture of it seatbelted into the passenger seat. So that's how you know you married the right woman.
That's pretty awesome. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not a big beer guy, so I don't. I mean,
I'm not either. That's
like,
why this
we
is so
talked about that
special.
before.
Yeah, yeah.
Really got to you. They really got you.
They did. They hooked me in with the marketing is on point, and then the flavor is obviously really good. And it's about time that they're coming to Michigan. I mean, they spread out a little bit, but being in Indiana, you would think Michigan would be a destination for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So the kids are all right. Everything's good.
The kids are okay. The dog's barking, but it sounds like everything's okay.
All right, let's jump right into it. We actually have quite a bit to get to today, so we will. This is a pretty fast one for our little introduction question, and then we'll get right into all the Michigan news that we got to discuss. And there's been quite a bit over the last couple of days. So here we go. Chris, what color is a mirror?
Clear.
Clear.
Well, is clear a color?
Herein lies the discussion.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have a color.
Colorless.
It's whatever color it's reflecting at that given time.
So if you watch cartoons, it's often like a bluish, maybe like a grayish blue.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I asked my wife this question yesterday, and she looked at me like I, wanted the cure for world hunger or something. I'm like,
That's a tough one.
It's not really that deep, but it's pretty tricky to answer. Obviously it's whatever color is opposite.
Yeah, I mean it takes on the color of whatever it's reflecting.
But a mirror itself, if you just had to like describe the color of that a mirror is.
Chrome, is chrome a color?
Yeah, I would say chrome is a color. It has a chrome
look. Pretty close, right? Chrome's reflective. I don't know.
Like if you look into like a chrome flat spot on an engine, like you'll be able to see yourself in that. I mean, right?
Are we getting flooded with answers from the audience on this one?
Yeah, no, not as much. Not as much. Yeah, that's hilarious, dude. But no, I thought that was a funny question. I'm always trying to just find like if it's going to be something stupid that we can launch into for 20 minutes, or if it's like a quick one like this one was.
This is where we need that soundboard, right? That would be that Price is Right horn would be perfect right now.
Whoa. Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
All right, so let's get into some real stuff now. First, came across the ticker yesterday, man, and I'm excited about this because I'm a big NBA fan. I know you're maybe not quite on the level that I am when it comes to keeping up with the NBA, but
side note, I've come to a decision on that front. Maybe that's something we can address at the end of the podcast.
We can maybe close with that.
Yeah, I've made a decision. So
okay, so John Beilein, Michigan's former head basketball coach, has been hired by the Detroit Pistons as the senior advisor of player development. And it's kind of crazy that I don't know why I never thought about this for him as a potential role, because he's so freaking good at recognizing and developing talent that it almost makes too much sense. Obviously, he went to Cleveland. It seemed like there were issues there. There were issues before he got there. It obviously didn't work out. He didn't even make it through a whole season, which I definitely didn't see that coming. I mean, I thought he would be better than he was and maybe figure some things out after a while, but didn't even make it through a whole season with the Cavaliers before they kind of parted ways. And now he's going to be in a front office role at the Pistons. And I think that is, like I said, it never crossed my mind before, because all he's ever, that's the drinking game, right? When you watch a Michigan game back in the day, John Beilein's only ever been a head coach. You take 2 shots or whatever it is. Right. And so it never really crossed my mind that he would do anything else other than coach. But man, dude, he found so many talented guys that weren't big time recruits and turned them into, first round draft picks in a lot of cases. And Duncan Robinson's about to sign like an $80-90 million contract, man. And like when he gets started out, he was playing at Williams College. Like, it's crazy to think about. So I love this role. I love this move for the Pistons. I love this move for John Beilein. I hope it's something that he likes. And, he gets to live where he lived as he was putting roots down as Michigan's head coach. I just think it's a great development all the way around.
Yeah, agreed. Obviously, love John Beeline just as a person and what he did for the Michigan basketball program. I think the fact that he's taking a role like this in the state of Michigan, I mean, he's got no shortage of fans here.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of people are going to want to see this work out. For me, I'm a little bit surprised. After what happened with Cleveland, I know he took some time and was kind of serving as an analyst for the Big Ten Network. Thought he would ultimately find his way back to the college game. We'll see what happens with this Pistons position. But you're right; he's been great at identifying talent, and outside of that, that time he spent with Cleveland has been extremely successful throughout his career, and would expect that to continue in Detroit. But I do wonder if at some point he will return to college basketball. It just seems like that's his sweet spot.
I mean, he definitely seems to be like a college coach. Like that's the kind of coach that he is. That's what he had so much success at West Virginia and then at Michigan. But I think it was starting to weigh on him a little bit the way recruiting is done, and how he wasn't willing to step into that world and do the dirty stuff that so many college basketball programs do. And he's also 68 years old. I mean, so you just clock ticking a little bit on how long he could potentially do that, and he's got young grandkids and family stuff going on, like we said, the roots he put down in Michigan. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see if he ever does make his way back to college basketball as a coach. But if not, I think this is a role that he could be really successful in. I'm interested as a Pistons fan and somebody who does watch a good bit of NBA basketball. Like you don't hear about these guys. I just wonder like how much we'll
Right.
really see the fruits of his labor or really understand like, okay, that's got John Beeline's fingerprints all over, like he was
Yeah.
directly responsible for X, Y, and Z with that player or that this draft class or whatever it is. I'm just I'm curious as a fan what that will look like and what he ultimately does with the Pistons. But I love it as a Pistons fan and as a John Beeline fan. I think it's awesome, and I know a lot of
Yeah.
people around social media and on Twitter were pretty pumped about it too.
I don't think
So
there's too many people that are Pistons fans or just sports fans in the state of Michigan that don't like that hire. So
yeah, no, I'm excited to see what that ends up looking like. Switching over to football, another transfer. Cornell Wheeler, former standout from West Bloomfield High School, announced not long ago, I think on Instagram, maybe on Twitter as well, that he will be transferring. And it's one of those situations. It's one of the biggest defenses or arguments made whenever a transfer happens. Like I think that Michigan has had more transfers than anyone else in the Big Ten and is top five, top 10 in the entire country. I think that's an issue. I think that's pretty obvious, especially when there's been no coaching change and it just guys are leaving that are playing. Former starters are leaving. Like that's not typically how it goes.
yeah,
The argument always though from people who want to defend that is like, well, what did that guy do? Who cares if he left? And that's what you're going to find with Cornell Wheeler because he's only
yeah,
a second year player. He hasn't seen the field. But to me, again, his best friend Makari Page is there, his good buddy Donovan Edwards is there, and his former high school coach is there, and he's still leaving after just 1 year.
yeah.
And so I don't know. No, it's not going to make a big deal on the field. He probably wasn't going to see the field again, and maybe that's as deep as it is. It was just a depth chart thing, but that's pretty early to be packing your bags up and hitting the road, especially after going through spring ball just now, and now you're kind of gearing up towards the next season. Of course, wherever he chooses to go, he'll be able to play right away. But I still think it speaks to something being a little bit off. And no, you're not going to see a big impact of it on the field. But you never know what he would have maybe turned into if he had stuck around for another couple years. But with a new scheme, a new linebackers coach, he decides to leave.
Yeah, and you're right. It's a little bit strange just given the fact that he's got some former teammates on the roster right now. He would have an opportunity to play for his former coach, or at least have his former coach on the
Right.
on the coaching staff. But you're right. He didn't see the field in 2020, and probably the fact that he's leaving now really speaks to maybe how good that group is and kind of the direction that defense is going, and it just doesn't mesh with what he's trying to do because it looks like there on the surface there would be a lot of incentives for him to stay and try to work it out. So to me this just seems like one of those things where I'm not reading too much into it.
Yeah.
There seems to be a legitimate reason why he's going elsewhere, and whether or not it's playing time or something else, I think he's making the best move for him.
Yeah, and we've heard we've heard quite a few different linebacker names brought up, and his has never been one of them. I mean,
Correct. Yeah.
it's just never been one of them. And I watched him in high school quite a bit. I got to know him pretty well. Always liked his game. He's a tackling machine, but he's a little limited athletically. He's not one of these rangy freak athletes. He can move. He's got a stockier build, and I always thought he did pretty good in space. Was okay in coverage, but he was a tackling machine, man. I mean, I would go to West Bloomfield games, and it was number 44 Cornell Wheeler on the stop over and over and over and
Yeah.
over again. Just always around the ball. Played a little bit of running back, fullback type of thing. Was a pretty good athlete there. He reminded me a lot of David Reese. I don't know if you remember him or not, but he was a Farmington kid. He was committed to Michigan for a long time, and then Michigan really kind of pushed him out of the door. And he went to Florida and became like the leading tackler in the SEC for a season or two. Like another guy that was built kind of stocky, wasn't a great athlete, but just had a nose for the ball, was always around it and made a ton of stops. And I thought maybe that's what Cornell Wheeler could be. But again, we've heard a lot about Nikai Hill Green. We've heard a lot about Junior Colson. We've heard a lot about Anthony Solomon. And again, the switch up in the scheme just looks like maybe Cornell was kind of an odd man out. So hope he finds a cool spot for himself. Hope he gets to play a lot. I liked him a lot as a kid, as a recruit. Covering him was great. Just didn't work out for him at Michigan. I do think that the overall transfer numbers speak to something going on. This might not be the best example of one of those deals.
Yeah, I don't put this in the same category as I would, a Giles Jackson or a Charbonnet or even a
Right.
Joe Milton, guys that had potential and were playing and were in starting roles and ultimately decided to go elsewhere. But you'd like to see you'd love to see all of your recruits pan out and
Yeah.
and develop into great players. But I think this is just one of those situations where it probably wasn't a good fit.
I think I talked about the rule of thirds before. It might have been which who knows if how much we'll reference Bo Schembechler moving forward or what all comes of all that. But I think John Borton and Chris Ballas, who I worked with at the Wolverine for a long time and who covered the program under previous head coaches and kind of showed me the ropes in a lot of ways. And recruiting was never really their wheelhouse, but they always talked about the rule of thirds. Like in every recruiting class, a third of your guys are going to be regular contributors, a third of your guys are going to be roster bodies, and a third of your guys are going to be nothing or leave. Like, and that's kind of the way it works. I mean, you're going to hit on some and you're going to miss on some. And unfortunately, I know Cornell personally, and I think very highly of him. He was one of the misses. It is what it is. Happens that way sometimes, and like I said, he'll probably go to a smaller program and make have seasons where he makes 100 tackles, and who knows what his future will hold. But
Yeah.
not going to be at Michigan. So good luck to him. Hope it all works out after 1 year. Cornell Wheeler is off to another destination. All right, the biggest topic of the day. Here we go, Chris, and I think there's going to be a lot of opinions in both directions with this, but Juwan Howard's name is now circulating for the Boston Celtics job. Danny Ainge has stepped down as the general manager. He's kind of retired, I guess, just stepped away from the position. And Brad Stevens, who was the head coach, moved into that role. This is a weird. This doesn't usually go this way.
Yeah.
So it's bizarre on the surface that Danny Ainge stepped down. Brad Stevens, who has been a good coach, I wouldn't quite say great, but like perennial playoff team. They've made it to a couple Eastern Conference Finals. Like they've been pretty good. And now he steps into a GM role, which maybe he's better suited for that. He's a basketball nerd, like just a basketball junkie, but he's kind of dull, stick in the mud type. I mean, I don't know. I've never been to a practice. I don't know how he conducts himself around his players, but Juwan Howard is not that. Like he's a live wire, energy. Like certainly a player's coach, but has shown that he can build a culture and do the on court stuff very well. Also, there you go. Thank you, Mrs. Breiler.
Thank you.
But Jeff Goodman, a very plugged-in NBA beat reporter, said if there was one person I would call if I was the Celtics, it would be Juwan Howard, and that's where all this took off from.
Yeah.
Like the Celtics have not reached out to Juwan Howard that we know of, and they may not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking about doing. They might have a Rolodex of 8 guys that they want to get in contact with, and Juwan's not one of them. No, we don't know that yet. But you put up a story about he's really good at what he does. He's a lifer, an NBA lifer. Anytime a position opens up, he's going to be in the mix, or probably should be, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, if these franchises are doing their job, like Juwan Howard should get a look. but nothing has happened yet. This is just one guy who does know what he's talking about saying something that he thinks the Celtics should do. So that's where that's at right now. Thoughts on that first before I get into my opinion and the part that some people are probably going to disagree with on some levels.
Honestly, I think any NBA head coaching job that comes up, Juwan Howard should be in the running for. His name should be thrown around. And I think that's just a testament to how well he's done as a head coach at the University of Michigan. A guy that came in with a lot of question marks. He had never been a head coach before. A lot of people thought it was a dud of a hire, and that Michigan kind of went the traditional, well, we're just going to hire a Michigan man sort of deal. And he's turned out to be one of the, if not the best coach in college basketball. And I say that from not just from what he does or helps the players do on the floor, but just who he is as a person, what he's able to do on the recruiting trail. He is the total package. And so, yeah, I think Michigan fans, and I said this in the article today, get used to hearing his name thrown around, because every time a job comes open, his name should be mentioned in it. And I look at that as it's just a justification of the really good work he's done while in Ann Arbor.
And what you just said, dude, like it sounds kind of crazy, but I don't think that's hyperbole. Like he's so good being one of the best coaches in the country. He's so good at just about everything involved that it equals a very large sum.
Yeah.
Would you pick some other people to draw up a late game play with 2 seconds left? Maybe, but can those coaches recruit as well as him, or can they build a culture as well as him? Can they relate to their players as well as him? Can they lean on the NBA experience they have, or help get guys to the next? Like he just brings so much to the table that I don't think that's like a hyperbolic statement that he's one of
I
the
wouldn't
best.
trade him for any other
You
college coach
know,
right now.
you've
Not one.
got a point there. You do have a point there, and I think that is a justification. That's a testament to how good he's been and what he's done. Now here's where I will maybe lose some people and rub some people the wrong way and
Boo!
get booed and get hissed. If the Boston Celtics do come calling, Juwan Howard is going to have a very, very difficult decision to make. People think, fans automatically just want he's never leaving. He's never leaving. Like you don't know that, and if anybody can put together a package for a head coach to lure them away from a job that they love, it's the Boston Celtics, man. Like they have so many things going in their favor. One is that they're the freaking Celtics. Like they're arguably the most storied franchise in the entire NBA. I think the only team that you can throw in the mix with them is the Lakers.
Lakers.
Maybe the Knicks, but they haven't been as good, but the brand is huge because
Yeah.
of New York and Madison Square Garden and everything. Secondly, they have a trio of players that are. I mean, you could put Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, and Kemba Walker up against just about any three guards in the league, and you're gonna find a tough. You're gonna find it tough to find a better trio. Obviously, the Nets just handled them, but Jalen Brown's been hurt. Kemba Walker was hurt in Game 5. Robert Williams, their young center, has been hurt. Like they weren't the team that they could and should potentially be. So I just mentioned Robert Williams. They also have a solid young point guard in Peyton Pritchard, who they just drafted. Tristan Thompson. I don't know what the contract situation is with some of these guys, so whoever's inheriting the team next year might have some cleaning up to do. But on the surface, the trio of Tatum, Brown, and Walker is enough to lure just about
Yeah.
any coach there. They're also, if they decide to take a run at Juwan Howard, they're probably going to be able to like triple or quadruple his pay. Now, I hate the argument where people say like, "Well, he doesn't need the money." Bro, listen to the words I'm saying. Triple or quadruple his pay. Like, I don't care if he did sign a $100 million contract when he played in the NBA. You ask anybody in any arena in any walk of life if they could take a different job for quadruple the pay, they're saying yes to it yesterday. Like, money talks, man. Money freaking talks. Now, I will say on the flip side of the argument, if there has ever been a perfect job for a person, it is the Michigan job for Juwan Howard. His son Jace is already on the roster. It looks very likely that his son Jet is going to be at some point. There are also a lot of things working in Michigan's favor to keep him. But if you think that Juwan Howard is just going to dust this off without even giving it a thought, I think you're wrong. I think you are dead wrong in that if the Celtics come calling, he is going to listen, and he is going to listen intently to what they have to offer.
I think he'll give it a thought. Especially, and you would mention it with a franchise like Boston, when you have an op like those jobs don't come available all that often, and it's really hard to turn down. Even if it's a Knicks job, I know that they're doing a little bit better, but
Hmm.
they've been struggling for a while. Whether it's the Lakers, the Knicks, the Celtics, I think anybody who has dreams of coaching at a high level would entertain the opportunity to potentially coach the Boston Celtics.
And hold
But
that thought right there, because you bring up a good point. Jobs like this don't come open. Usually, jobs
right.
blow. It's like teams that are in the tank that fired their coach because they're doing horrible. Like Boston's a like whoever takes over this Boston job is gonna have home court advantage in the playoffs next
It's
year.
a great job. I mean,
I mean, like that's
it's a
insane.
great sports city. I mean, it's as close to a dream job as you can get in terms of professional
Hmm.
sports. But I will say, and I wrote this in the article today, that this to me, Juwan Howard, head coach, Michigan basketball, if there is such a thing as a perfect marriage between coach and program or coach and franchise, this is it. I mean, I genuinely feel that from him, that he is happy here, that this is home for him, and that he's got a lot of things he wants to accomplish at
Hmm.
Michigan before he will seriously entertain the idea of going elsewhere. And because of that, I just, he might take a look at it. I'm not going to lose any sleep worrying about whether he's going to go to Boston or not. This program, for as good as it was under Beeline, is still ascending. He's bringing in some top players, and they have got a legitimate shot to capture a national title next year. We're not talking about 2, 3, 4 years from now. I mean, this is now a program that's getting to the point where it's not rebuild, it's just reload year after year. And it's crazy to think that that's where the Michigan basketball program is at. But make no mistake, Michigan is a hard place to leave if you are
Hmm.
a head coach. I mean, what's better than college basketball and tournament time? I think Juwan Howard had a blast last year, and I think he really wants to do it again with a full basketball stadium and the full experience. And he's been robbed of a lot of that in his young coaching career. I mean,
Hmm.
you look at his first season. I think the tournament was canceled in his first season, right?
Yep.
And then the second year they're playing in empty stadiums, and so he hasn't even really gotten the full college basketball experience yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And that, like I said, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he tweeted while we're on air right now and said like this stuff is nonsense, I'm not leaving. Like I'd be like, all
Yeah.
right, well there you go. I would totally believe that, but I also totally believe that if Boston came calling and threw an offer at him, he would listen and entertain it and weigh his options to like anyone should in that position. It's like the fact that he played at Michigan, was a member of the Fab Five, an alum, like it carries so much weight. It's very obvious when he's crying at his introductory press conference. He talks about the power of Michigan almost every chance he gets. But he spent 3 or 4 years in Ann Arbor. Now you can tack on the last two. He spent 25 years in the NBA, man.
Yeah.
Like that's his wheelhouse. That's where he feels most at home, is going through that 82 game schedule and knowing what it's like to be a pro and networking with other professionals and learning the ins and outs of what it takes to run a program with another, like probably like a second tier program in the Miami Heat. Like they're I don't know, man. I'm not willing to. I'm not going to say what so many Michigan fans are saying, and that is he's never leaving. That's so stupid that people would even bring his name up. I just don't. I don't think it is. I don't think it is stupid, and I think it's very, very much so something that he would think about if Boston does come around with with an interview or a phone call or an offer. I don't know. I mean, we don't even know if it'll reach any of those levels, but
Right.
it's also not a reach because Juwan was starting to be brought up in job searches before he got to Michigan. Like the Timberwolves job was one he may have even interviewed for it. I can't remember if he did. Obviously, he didn't get it, but it's not a reach. There were teams that were starting to look at him already as like, okay, here's a 20-year NBA player, 20-year veteran player. Then he was 5 or 6 seasons as an assistant with the Heat. That's the ladder that you climb to get a head coaching job in the NBA. So
It's safe to say his coaching stock is at an all-time
it
high,
is,
and I
man.
and I think whether it's he's not going to go coach another college basketball team. We know that for sure. But when you start talking about a franchise like the Boston Celtics or some of these premier franchise teams, I think yeah, you would have to at least give it a serious look. Even if you don't really intend on taking it, you've got to entertain it a little bit.
So put up a comment here from a listener. I can see Juwan taking an NBA job after his son's finished through Michigan too soon to leave, in my opinion. I don't disagree with that sentiment, but like I said, like jobs like this don't come open. I
Yeah.
mean, like successful teams with star players and top 4 or 5 seedings in the playoffs don't hire new coaches. Like it just doesn't happen. And
Yeah.
it's Boston, and it's the money, and like I don't know, man. I think this is a rare. Like I said, the way that this job came open in the first place is rare. So I think it needs to be looked at pretty seriously. Again, if it's still a really big if Boston does extend, like I said, a phone call, an interview, an offer, whatever it may be. I would assume they're going to look pretty hard at multiple people. But I, you said you wouldn't lose sleep. I'm not going to lose sleep over it either. And at the end of the day, like I want Juwan Howard to stay at Michigan I want him to be like, Jim Boeheim, stay for 45 freaking years, man.
Yeah.
Till you're pushing 80. Like, dude, he's that good. He's that much fun to cover. He's done such an awesome job so quickly. As a fan of Michigan basketball, please stay. As a member of the media, please stay. He's been really fun to cover.
Yeah.
He's awesome in press conferences. He goes back and forth with you. Like he's been a joy from every angle. And other fans can't even say anything bad about him. Like that's another thing too. Like they might not like him because he's doing well and he's killing it already on the recruiting trail and he won the Big Ten, and they want to take a shot at him. But what can you say? He's done everything so well and just so genuinely, so real. Like you can't hate on a dude like
He's
that. You just
he's really hard to dislike. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
he is, man. I mean, especially if you're a Michigan person, you can
Yeah.
defend him to the death. But even people from other fan bases, what could they really say at this point? So, like I said, hopefully he stays. And like I would love for him to simply come out and tweet like Boston, pound sand, I'm staying in Ann Arbor. But we'll see.
For as much as I don't think it's going to happen, if his ultimate goal is to return to the NBA and to have a head coaching gig in the NBA, Boston Celtics, if
You're
that
not.
job comes available and somebody gives you a phone call, you're right. That's one of those where I don't think he's going anywhere, but you would have to at least listen.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. All right, yesterday Chris and I got together and I mean just riveting stuff out at Eastern Michigan. No, I mean I say that I dropped something while I'm sitting here. I say that like little tongue in cheek, but we went to it. We went. It's the first day that camps were allowed again. June
Great
1st.
seating. Great seating.
Yeah,
We had a phenomenal spot in the stadium.
yeah. The factory over at Eastern Michigan has like a little, I don't know, like
Little
premier
table,
spot. Yeah,
yeah,
tables
like
and
with
like
some
recliner
cozy
chairs.
chairs. Yeah, it was great.
So, anyways, we did that. There weren't a lot of Michigan prospects there with an offer. There were a few. 2024 wide receiver Nick Marsh from River Rouge looked really good. Chris actually spotted him from like 60 rows up. He's like, "Who's that dude?"
Didn't even know who he was, but he certainly stood out. So
Yeah, and as soon as I saw him, I went down and talked to Coach Corey Parker. Um, he looked the part. I mean, he was really young, obviously, still as a 2024 kid, but he looked the part. Had a really good day. The second session, Deone Walker was there, the big defensive tackle out of Cass Tech. C.J. Carr was also in the second session from Saline, 2024 quarterback. Lloyd Carr's grandson has a Michigan offer already. So there were a few guys of interest to keep an eye on and watch a little bit. Mike Hart and Matt Weiss showed up for the second session as well. So a couple Michigan coaches that are new to the job were on hand and watching how things went, and just it's Mike Hart's old stomping grounds a little bit, so he was kind of walking around. Some of the Indiana coaches were also there, so he was having a good time, I'm sure. Matt Weiss was chopping it up with several different people. Saw him spend a little bit of time talking to C.J. Carr, so from that standpoint, it was cool to see, but it just wasn't. When we go to these camps, you like to get as much as you possibly can. Lots of content. Talk to 20 recruits. Maybe pin the coaches down and get them to talk for a couple. We didn't get any of that. So it's just some of the days are like that, and you don't get those opportunities. But got a couple photos of the new coaches. Looked at Nick Marsh pretty closely because we were there for his whole session. We took off before the second session wrapped up. But anyway, it's camp season, man. I'm excited about that. Like, as a person
Yeah.
who used to cover recruiting exclusively, I love going to camps. I love watching some actual football before actual football is here. Your first time ever being at something like this, was it everything you imagined and more?
Uh, well, what? Here's what I'll say. We were sitting inside of a football stadium, and the weather was beautiful, and we were watching kids throw around a football and do drills. And yeah, you would have liked to have had a little more action in terms of being able to talk to the players and get FaceTime with some of the coaches. But just the fact that we were inside of a stadium, we weren't wearing masks, it was relaxed. It just, you really kind of, at least for me personally, how fall is going to play out was starting to like it's just all
Yeah,
coming together like with each passing day now, and as things kind of get closer and closer to getting back to normal, and you see it now with fans are coming back in the stadiums with like the NBA playoffs and some of the other things that are going on. It was exciting for me from that standpoint. Not a lot of action, but just to be back in that environment and to feel a little bit normal in the sports world was awesome.
yeah. I mean, you'll never get old. You'll never get tired, and it never gets old that you just look around for a second. You're like, this is my job. I'm just at a
Yeah.
football stadium watching football, and that's pretty badass. So yeah, it was an awesome day. Super nice out. Um, you like you said, you would love to come away with 20 pieces of original content that you can put on the site and you can talk about and you can let other people digest. But it is what it is. You take what you can get. We are going to get a chance to do a little bit more of that tomorrow at Ferris State University, a much bigger camp put on by Sound Mind, Sound Body, which is Curtis Blackwell, formerly of Michigan State, and Deion Johnson, who is Will Johnson's dad. Will Johnson, the big time cornerback commit right now for Michigan. So that should be a lot of fun tomorrow. Long drive, long day, but it's going to be a much better camp in terms of Michigan interest and guys that are committed to Michigan. There's going to be a couple there, and Will Johnson and Devontae Miles, guys who are potentially going to be Michigan commits down the road, and Deion Walker and Dylan Tatum from West Bloomfield. So it's going to be really cool to see that tomorrow. And yeah, we'll see what kind of things we can get. The biggest deal though is that Jim Harbaugh and the whole staff, I believe, just about is going to be there, and Harbaugh is going to speak. I don't know if that means that we will get to talk to him like in a scrum type of media setting, or if we'll get a chance to talk to the coaches in a scrum type of media setting. But Jim Harbaugh will at least speak, up front to the campers, to the people in attendance, and we'll see how that goes. This is taking place of a camp that used to be, I didn't even realize this, but it used to be at Grand Valley, the Sound Mind Sound
Oh,
Body
okay.
camp. So I've been to this event before. It's just at a new place now at Ferris, a little bit up up to state a little ways. I wish it was a little closer to home, but that's all good, man. It should be a fun time. Weather's supposed to be amazing again.
It is.
So we will hopefully have lots of good stuff and lots of good content from that tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week and into the weekend even. So we will see how that goes. Not a camp, but Michigan had a monstrous, I'll say monstrous, 40 plus kids were on the invite list anyways. Recruiting day scheduled today. They called it Detroit Day for obvious reasons. Kids from the city of Detroit and the surrounding areas, suburbs, and a lot of kids that there's a lot of interest with. Again, Will Johnson was expected to be there. Dylan Tatum, Deone Walker, some other guys from Cass Tech with offers. A whole slew of kids with offers from West Bloomfield, including a couple really young guys, Kari Jackson, Brandon Davis Swain, I think 2024 kids, both of them. Um, just a good event when you've got a lot of new recruiting staffers, a lot of new assistant coaches, and a lot of these guys haven't seen any of them in person yet because of
Yeah.
the 15-month recruiting dead period and just the changeover in general. So this is a bummer. We don't get to go to these ones. We don't get to see anything at these ones. But when you start, Chris, as you're kind of new to this job a little bit still, and some of this stuff is new because it's just happening now for the first time since you started doing this. What are your initial takeaways when you see like, damn, Michigan's got 40 kids from Detroit and the surrounding areas coming in for an in-person visit with all these new support staff people, all these new assistants, and whatever Michigan's working towards in the 2022 cycle, and even younger than that, kids that are just now getting into high school.
Yeah, it's all good things, man. It's really nice to see the machine starting back up, and there's action now, and the camps are taking place, and it shows that I don't know. I fully believe that Michigan is in a position, and we've talked about this before, where they have all of the resources necessary to pretty much go and get relatively anybody they want to get. Now, I know, when you're talking about competing with Ohio State and some of the SEC schools, I know that, Michigan's typically going to lose out on most of those types of players. But generally speaking, when you look at the college football world, Michigan is at the top in terms of having their pick of the litter. So the more people they can get on campus and the more of these camps they can participate in, it's a good thing. And just to be there and see it firsthand, I think it's awesome to see how it operates.
Yeah, yeah. So Michigan's got as far as I know, today's Detroit day, there weren't any like competitions. I mean, I hear that sometimes things kind of break out a little bit because you get all these guys around each other and they want to throw the ball around a little bit. I don't
Lathered up a little bit.
Yeah, it just is kind of inevitable with some of these events, but that's not really what today was about. Today was photo shoot and tour and meet and greet and get familiar with some of these new guys that are on staff and get familiar with each other. Some of the committed guys, some of the guys who are big time targets. Just get a little bit of that camaraderie going. But Michigan will have skill camps on June 6th and June 13th, also closed to the media. They used to be open. They used to be amazing, man. You could go in and watch the coaches do exactly what they do, watch some of the Michigan players work with the younger guys and bring them along through drills. And then obviously what I cared about when I was doing that job was which guys are the Michigan coaches really focusing on, like which recruits are getting a lot of attention. Sometimes it was really obvious. It would be guys that were big-time targets, but sometimes, and we talked about this yesterday, guys get offered. I mean, they show up at a camp and they dominate and they get an offer right on the spot, that's always pretty cool to see. I mean, I've actually seen that go down a few times. It's like, damn, that kid dominated all day. The coach has grabbed him. He's got an offer now, and we'll see what happens. So we won't get to see any of that firsthand for these skill camps because they're now closed to the public and to the media. But Michigan does have one of those coming up in 4 days, and then another one a week after that. So yeah, I'm just ecstatic that camp season is back open. We'll go to as much as we can whenever we feel like it's valuable and whenever we feel like we're going to get some good content out of it. Yesterday was really kind of I don't want to call it a trial run because we were hoping to get some stuff out of it. It just didn't really work out, and there are still some unknowns. I mean, like we walked up and we had to fill out a questionnaire for COVID. We had masks on at first, or we had them with us at least, but it was outdoors in the stadium and there weren't very many people there, so we were able to open it up a little bit. But we're still a little bit unknown on that. If we travel to Ohio or if we travel to Indiana or Illinois, like rules are different in different places. Are we going to be able to be down on the field talking to a kid or a coach? Like, we'll figure it out as we go. Chris is getting thrust headfirst into the world of recruiting.
I'm diving in, man. It's dynamic. Very dynamic.
And people I don't know, recruiting is an interesting thing, man. It's like it's something that I've always been really interested in, but a lot of people aren't. We talked about this before, man. It's really niche. It's like a niche market. Yeah. If you go to a sports bar and you start telling stories about recruiting, you might have a couple people come over and listen. If you go to a sports bar and you start telling stories about Jim Harbaugh, you'll have like everybody listening. It's just one of those things where the people who are into it are really into it, but it doesn't grab everybody.
I mean, generally speaking, I think the average fan will get really excited about like one of the top-rated prospects committing, like a Donovan Edwards or a J.J. McCarthy or somebody of that at that level. But the feedback I get for the most part is when you talk about recruiting from the fans generally is
don't say it, dude. It's my least favorite. It's my least. As a guy who used to cover recruiting, I would just be like,
yeah, talk to me when they're signed. Talk to me when they're on campus. Talk to me when they actually do something. And I don't think that's I think that part of that is just where the Michigan fan base is at right now. They don't give a shit about anything that happens on the recruiting trail until it leads to success. So don't talk to me until they start beating Ohio State. I don't care who he is. Can he beat Ohio?
Well, like we just talked about the other day, like Harbaugh can't even go catch a baseball game with his kid without people being like, bro, where's the breakdown of Ohio State's last 7 games, man? Like,
you cannot live outside of Schembechler Hall until you beat Ohio State. So just lock yourself in there.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do.
I mean, I don't completely disagree with the sentiment about like, well, I don't really care about this kid until I see him do something. I mean, like Cornell Wheeler, prime example. I spent a lot of time going to watch that kid's games and doing interviews, and I was there the day he committed. I got a bunch of photos of him in the Michigan hat and throwing up the M and all that, and now he literally never played and he's leaving. So like I do get it. But as a person who was always interested in recruiting and covered only that when I got my start in this industry. I have a soft spot for it, and like I said, the people who are into it are like really into it.
Very into it, yeah.
It's a niche thing, and people will really latch onto it and cover it and follow it as closely as they possibly can. To each his own, wherever you're at. But as things get back open, especially through June and July, you and I have talked about this. It helps to bring things along. I mean, there's no practices going on. There's no real news occurring with football aside from maybe a one-off story like a transfer or so and so, knock on wood, hopefully got hurt or whatever. There's little newsy things that pop up, but recruiting can kind of sustain some of that. So we'll see, man. We'll see how much we get into it and how much you want to bite off and how comfortable you start to feel with it. But I think going to something like yesterday, you said was pretty cool, though, just for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, a bad day sitting in the football stands watching kids play is better than a good day in the office. And, I enjoyed it. And to be honest, when people are curious about the work that Harbaugh and his staff are doing, like this is the work they're doing right now. And they're going out, getting FaceTime with these kids and trying to build the program for the future. And so wherever it is we're trying to get to, this is the work that's going to lead us there. And so I think, covering that to a certain extent is pretty important because it gives people some insight into what's going on and how things are going to look moving forward.
And especially now that they can again, that's the biggest thing. They couldn't do anything face to face for 15 months, man. It's crazy, And I think about the 2021 group and the 2022 group who's like flying blind through most of their recruiting process, and now, we're still 6 months away from the early signing period. I wonder if that's going to affect the early signing period this year because kids got screwed out of so much time, and so many kids now are signing in December. It's like 70 or 80%, I think, over the past few years since they switched that. I wonder if that'll be different this year, but we'll see. We'll see how that plays out, and we'll continue to cover it as best we can. And hopefully people are interested enough. I mean, when you hear a lot of people say it, recruiting people, regular team beat people, players, former players, coaches, like recruiting is the lifeblood of a program. You can't succeed unless you succeed at recruiting. So,
and if you needed any further evidence of that, look at how many people Michigan has added to help that effort in terms of you had one guy leave, right, who was pretty much running all of recruiting, and they replaced him with about 6 or 7 people, right, that are all highly qualified, have great backgrounds. And so I think if you needed further evidence of that, just look at some of Michigan's hires here during the off season.
Of course, the detractors would say, like, what the hell took so long? And I don't know. I don't know. Like, Michigan, again, we've talked about the resources they have. Should have had an army of 50 people working recruiting if they wanted to. So, yeah, it's a little strange. A little strange how that played out. You get rid of Dudek as the director of recruiting, and you replace him with Ashawn Larkins and Courtney Morgan and Christina DeRuiter and Sydney Sims and, Tony Woods is still there doing some different things. Tony Jones is still doing some things. And there's a lot of people behind the scenes that the average Michigan fan probably don't even know who they are, but it helps all that come along. And, yeah, it was probably overdue. It was overdue. Matt Dudek could have used some help when he first got the job. Instead, he was trying to wear 10 different hats, and maybe that's where some of the shortcomings were with Michigan recruiting. But even still, it's never been bad. It's been actually pretty good, especially in the Big Ten. It's been as good as everybody not named Ohio State. So anyway, I'm glad camp season is back. We will continue to talk about that as we move forward. I'm diving more into it than I probably have in the past with Wolverine Digest, just because it is my wheelhouse and I do like it. And now that it's back, I'm gonna try to cover it a little bit better, but we'll see. We will see how that goes. We're gonna finish up with something we've talked about doing. There's just questions that we get from people as we go. Don't want to ignore anybody. Don't want to make it look like we're not paying attention, because we are. But sometimes when we get into a little flow and a little rhythm, it's weird to throw a question up there. So we'll do these at the end. We will do these at the end. We'll just throw up every comment we'll get, and we'll talk about them for a second. This is going back to the Beeline stuff. Don't think he ever had a chance in Cleveland. Not many coaches will. Yeah, Cleveland was a shit show when he got there. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty clear, and they were dumping guys and buying out contracts. Drummond, like, what the hell was he ever doing there in the first place? And it was just weird. Beeline's a stand-up dude. He's been great everywhere he's been, except for Cleveland. So I don't know. It sucks that he has that on his resume, because the rest of it's been so good.
Yeah. That's just further proof that you don't go to Ohio.
He
should have known. He should have known.
Don't go to Ohio. Peter Johnson, thanks for the question. Was Wheeler brought in as a Viper? No, he's a interior Mike stocky 240-pounder all day long. He's not the 205-pound, speed demon at Viper that you can blitz and cover and do all sorts of things. Like kind of the safety linebacker tweener. That's not him. Wheeler is an interior thumper all day, every day.
Well, speaking of that, though, we haven't really talked too much about Mike Barrett and kind
Yeah.
of the role that he's going to play this upcoming year. I mean, he seems like one of those guys that could get shuffled out of the mix because there's no longer that Viper position, and where's he going to go? Is he going to go to the secondary? He's a little bit undersized for a true linebacker. Haven't really heard much of kind of where he's going to be at on the field.
It's one of those things, man. We talked about this before when William Mohan transferred, and I'm just like, you can't find a spot for a 6'2", 210-pounder who runs 4.5. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Viper was like Michigan tried to make that like their famed position, and they used it in recruiting pitches, and guys like Jabril Peppers and Cleek Hudson were amazing there. So I
Yeah.
get why it was kind of like a specialized role and a specialized thing, and they targeted guys like that on the recruiting trail, but like slightly undersized dudes who can fly around the field can play football. Like I
Yeah.
just, it's weird to me that position is so phased out that guys are jumping ship and don't even want to stay and try to find if they can. Maybe they can play the Will. Maybe they can play the Sam. Maybe they can be a rush guy. I mean, like I don't know.
Well, so
William,
far, I mean, it seems like Barrett's found a position. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to be doing, but he's still on the roster and no signs of transfer portal talks. So.
right. William Mohan was just a guy that I liked a lot coming out of high school. I mean, his nickname was Apache. He had the long hair, dude. He was
Yeah.
flying around, and he played in New York State, so he wasn't playing like great competition. But Ohio State really wanted him. A couple other schools really wanted him. Penn State really wanted him, and he picked Michigan, and now he's leaving because the scheme is changing and Viper isn't a thing anymore. I don't know. It seems a little weird to me, but it is what it is. Peter Johnson from YouTube also threw in that Colson will play over him. Yeah, I think so. I think he's a better athlete. He's bigger. He's faster. And I don't know if they're playing the exact same linebacker positions. We don't know a lot about that yet, having not spoken to Mike McDonald at any length about what the different linebacker spots will do. But I mean, Colson, dude, like he's one of the guys I'm most excited about.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I put out an article not too long ago that predicting that he was going to be one of the breakout players out of that true freshman bunch. I just think he's going to be able to come in and make an impact year one. I don't anticipate he's going to be not seeing any game action in 2021.
And then the big topic of the day again, Juwan Howard will stick around for the Michigan job. Like I don't disagree with that sentiment. I don't, but the end statement is just as true to me. Celtics job, you absolutely listen. All right, let me ask you this, Chris. I mean, like we're both Michigan fans. We grew up here. We were born and raised in the state. If you were coaching Michigan, which you would have to assume for most Michigan fans is like job one,
Yeah.
where would you fall on like what kind of job it would take to pull you away? Like I guess maybe focus on the Celtics specifically if you want, because that's why this is a thing. But I mean also in general, like what would it take? I mean, you're not Juwan Howard. You didn't play at
Right.
Michigan. You're not a former Fab Five guy, but like I don't know, just in general, what do you think about when you hear some of those ideas?
One of those premier, they hardly ever open. Like it would have to be, for as much as I love Michigan, it would have to be an opportunity where it was like, Jesus, this just doesn't come along often. Like this might be my only shot to get. But
Let me also say,
Michigan doesn't come along often either.
correct me if I'm wrong. You have never signed $100 million deal, correct?
Not recently.
Right.
Not in this
So
lifetime.
the money thing, while I do think even for a guy like Juwan Howard, it does matter. It certainly matters more for dudes like us who are, just trying to make it.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, that's such a different lifestyle that I can't really get into.
It's
like
true.
when
Yeah.
you're in that tax bracket, like if somebody's going to double, triple, quadruple your pay, I'm sure you're interested in it, but I don't know if it moves the needle as much when you're at that level as it does for guys like us who would go from like
That's what I'm
not
saying.
all that much to like a substantial amount, So
But I mean,
I don't know, man.
listen to how it sounds though. Juwan's making about $2 million for Michigan. What if he
Yeah.
could make 8 with the Celtics? Like, that's a shitload of money, man.
it's good, but I don't know. Yeah, 8 million's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't know. I don't know. It's such a different world
Yeah,
that I can't really relate to it. The only thing I can say is I love Michigan. I would want to be at Michigan, and if that truly felt like home to me, because there's other aspects of it too. It's not just you; it's how it's going to impact your family and what ties you
yeah.
have in certain areas. And I know that when you're somebody like Juwan Howard and you've played at the professional level, you sort of get used to a different lifestyle where, you might have to pick up and move one off season. It's totally unexpected and maybe you become accustomed to that. But I don't know. It just would really depend on what kind of roots I have and what support system I have around me, and if whatever financial offer is in this other area is enough to sort of want to walk away from that.
Top of your head right now, how many years does Juwan Howard coach at Michigan? Exact number. How many years?
How many more years or total?
Total. Yeah, just go total. And he's got two in already then.
I think he's here. I would say I want to say at least 10 years, but I'll say
Wow.
12. I'll say 12 years.
12 years.
He'll be here for 12 years.
Man, that I mean, dude, if you can hit right, like you look back through time and you find these programs or professional teams for that matter, that can find a guy with that kind of staying power, longevity, continuity, it is like I mean, it's like finding a pot of gold, man.
And he seems like he's that, right? He seems like he was like custom built for this job
Hmm.
in college basketball with just the total package he has. In some ways, I almost feel like going back to the NBA as a head coach would be wasting some of what he has to offer for
Yeah, you make a good point.
young men. And I think there's a big part of him that gets that and understands that, considering where he grew up, where he comes from. I think he really enjoys that aspect of this job, and that's why I think it's going to be really hard to pull him out of it.
It's rewarding and fulfilling on a level that money and other things like that just
Yeah.
can't touch. Hey, look, that's the first time we've really mentioned that, and I think it is a really good point because when he talks about those things, it's not just talk. It's not lip service. He does, and he's got young sons the same age, like so it all resonates, man. It
Yeah.
really does resonate with him, and we're not in his head. We're not in Boston, the Boston brass head. Like we don't know what they're thinking, but it's certainly a topic of discussion. And like you said in the article, the title of the article, or at least the title of the tweet was "Get used to it." I mean, it's not
Yeah.
going to go away. It was this way with Jim Harbaugh at first. That has obviously died down, but when coaches are good, like they get looked at. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And even if you think it's the absolute top tier upper echelon job, you know, here's another million, here's another million, and so it's always going to be something to think about.
It wasn't all that long ago when Jim Harbaugh's name was being thrown out, left and right during the offseason and for potential NFL jobs.
Yeah.
You're not really seeing that so much now, and that might be part of the thinking too. Your stock can rise and fall pretty dramatically, given 1 or 2 years. So, meh.
Let's see this one. This is an interesting question. We haven't talked really a lot about this. In hindsight's 2020, obviously, but if Dylan McCaffrey would have started last year, how great would and he finished this question up? How great would this season outlook be? Man, well, I mean, even with hindsight, I don't even know if it matters. I mean, we didn't see enough of Dylan McCaffrey to really know what he was capable of doing. The Michigan coaches, whether you hate them, love them, think they suck at what they do, or think they've killed it since they've been in Michigan, they know football, and they picked Joe Milton. So, I, obviously, Dylan McCaffrey wasn't killing it. Look, man, like
That's what puzzles me about this is that there's so many people who believe that Dylan McCaffrey was the dude, and the fact that Joe Milton was picked over him. I mean, you got to believe, like, yeah, you're right. You might think this coaching staff isn't all that great, but they had to have, like, people in the program had to have known, like, if this was a terrible, terrible mistake, I would imagine it would have come out, or somebody, it would have been known. Everything you heard coming out of camp was that it was clear that Joe Milton was leading that effort.
college coaches aren't in the business of sucking and getting fired. Like,
Right.
so they're going to make a decision that they think is clearly the best decision. Now, again, oh my god, there's a whole group of people that think that, like, Harbaugh's playing favorites and he's doing, like, I know, dude, they want to freaking win. They're going to play the best guy. If you've been around sports before in your life, it's really not that hard to figure out who those people are.
Yeah.
Like, when you're coaching basketball or football or whatever sport it is, like day two, bro, you could see like there's our starting five. Like
Yeah.
it's probably a little, not probably. It's harder at this level because everyone's good. They all are. They all were stars in high school. They all got a full ride scholarship to play college ball. But like even still, like the cream rises to the top. You could usually tell, and they're gonna pick the best guy for every position. Now there probably is something to like practice performance versus under the lights. Like guys do different things, but I don't know. I just think like I don't really think if Dylan McCaffrey had been chosen as the guy last year that things would be all that different right now. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And the injuries were an issue. And you're right. The you know what the shitty part about it is, we had an opportunity to find out, right? Like it clearly wasn't working with Milton. McCaffrey would have gotten his shot, and had he stayed, he would be coming back this season, presumably as the favorite. If not already being named the starting quarterback. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. Hindsight is 2020, and you can speculate all you want, but for me, when it comes to McCaffrey, the dude walked, and that's just kind of what it is. And so whatever he would have become at Michigan doesn't matter because he didn't want to stick it out and continue to fight for his opportunity. And I get that, man. I get that some kids just want to go and play, and it seems like he's going to a really good spot to go play for his father back in Colorado. So more power to him. I hope he's found a good spot there. But in terms of what he was going to do here, you can't make things happen if you're not on the field.
Here's something I will say. I think things were soured with McCaffrey when Shea Patterson was still at Michigan because there were opportunities for a change
Yeah.
and it never happened. And so people were calling for Dylan McCaffrey to be the guy then. I mean, 2 full seasons ago when Patterson was struggling here or there, and then they finally do put McCaffrey in, to try to play hero ball for a minute against Wisconsin, and he gets destroyed. And I mean, that was pretty much the end of his Michigan career.
That was
right
it.
there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a good spot to put him in. I don't know what you thought he was going to do at that point when you're getting blasted, and he's gonna whatever. I mean, yeah, hindsight is 2020, and you can look at it then and say like, why put him in now? Why not let it ride out? Wisconsin was beating the brakes off of Michigan. Start him the next week. Let him be the guy for the week of practice. I don't know, whatever. But I think that's where the wheels really came off the Dylan McCaffrey train was in 2019 when Shea Patterson was still at Michigan and he wasn't lighting the world on fire. I think there were plenty of and I'm bad at this kind of stuff. My memory just doesn't recall like specific games or weeks very well, but I remember there being a like louder than a whisper of it's time to set Patterson down and give McCaffrey a start.
And
And
to
it never
McCaffrey's
happened.
credit, when he was out there, even though it was limited, extremely limited reps, he did find a way to make plays. I mean, he clearly was quick enough to get to the perimeter and could burn guys, and he had a pretty solid arm. But unfortunately, I think the injuries really played a significant part in derailing any momentum he was going to build towards earning
Yep.
the starting job. And then obviously you go through the 2 years of Patterson, and then you find out you're not winning a job, with Milton, and
It is
that's
what it is.
I'm not hating on him. That's a tough situation to say, you know what, I'm going to stick it out.
Yeah, for every yeah, yeah, it is tough, man. There's a lot of layers, and there's a different story for every scenario. You hear like former players that did stick it out and got their shot and then made it to the NFL or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you're like the 1%er. Shut
Right.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like great for
Tom
you.
Brady.
Yeah, like awesome for you, but it doesn't work that way for most guys. Like they want to play, man. While they've got their 4 to 5 year window, they want to play, and
Right.
and so I just never. I mean, like yes, in a perfect world, in a story, in a fairy tale, a storybook ending, or made for TV movie, like he sticks it out, he comes back from the concussion, he rises to like cool, but like that doesn't happen very often. He's gonna have a chance to go play somewhere, and so yeah, go more power to him. Go figure it out. William Mohan, go figure it out. Cornell Wheeler, go figure it out, man. Would I have loved for those guys to all be, freshman All-Americans? Sure, but that's not the story that's written for everybody. So,
Yeah.
and especially with the transfer portal being what it is and being able to play right away. Yeah, I don't know. There might be some generational thing. People want immediate satisfaction.
Yeah.
I don't think that's off base to say. You and I are probably less patient and want things faster than our dads, and they're probably worse than their dads, and it is what it is. think my dad would stay. My dad.
Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
I don't even know what I was about to say, but I just feel like my dad would be like, I can hear my dad saying something like, "I'd wait 25 years for my chance if I had to." Like it's not really realistic, and it's not really how a lot of people think. But you'd hear some old dude say that, like, "That's Michigan. That's the school I picked. I'd wait 30 years for my shot if I had to." Well, cool, dude, but that's not how it works. So
Yeah.
I don't know. My dad was just here today, and I just like pictured him saying that, and I started laughing. Actually, what I immediately thought of was my dad. My dad turned 60 in March. He thinks he could win like every level of the UFC. He's like, I would never tap. I would never tap out. He's he barely has a neck. My dad's not fat, but it's like his neck is just not very big. So he's like, I'd just wade in. And I'm like, Dad, first of all, I can take you, okay? And I'm not fighting anybody, so I don't know.
He's just not tapping. That's the end goal, right?
He said he wouldn't tap out, and maybe that part is true. But I'm like, Dad, like, if I knock you down, it takes you like an hour to get up. Like, have you seen what these guys do?
Yeah. Well, I think when you and I talked about McCaffrey specifically, maybe it was a few weeks back at this point, I think you made a good point, though. Like, you don't have to be the quarterback at the University of Michigan to get a look from the next level. Like, you can go play at Northern Colorado, have a solid season, and then get to, the combine and show out and get drafted first, second round, whatever the case is. And so I think a lot of people also have that misconception that, it's a weird move to go from Michigan to like Northern Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he went, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird move, especially if he is the type of quarterback that everybody else, all the people at the Michigan fan base thought he was. If he's this premier quarterback, why not transfer to another big-name program? Mm-hmm. But he can go play for his dad out in Northern Colorado, and he can still have just as good of a shot at playing at the next level.
Dude, I'm telling you, if at 6'5", 230, he throws for 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and then goes to the combine and runs a 4.5, he's getting a look. He'll have a cup of coffee in the league. I mean, I'm not.
And he's a McCaffrey.
And by the way,
that doesn't hurt.
The name doesn't hurt. You're absolutely right. People are gonna be like, "Oh, give that kid a shot, man." I mean, look at his brother, look at his dad. His other two brothers have also played like high D1 football. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm sure he'll be the starter. I mean, I will be shocked if he's not the starter, being where he, the pedigree that he has. That he's talented. I mean, he's a talented kid. We saw flashes of it. And oh, by the way, his dad's the coach. Like, he's going to be the starter.
Right. Yeah.
Not that nepotism is a thing necessarily for them, for that family. Like, they're pretty freaking good at what they do. Right. But yeah, like I said, Trey Lance, top, Carson Wentz, guys who have been very high first-round draft picks from these smaller schools. It happens, man. If you're good, they'll find you. They'll find you. The NFL is littered with guys from small schools making big impacts. So, yeah, we'll see how that all plays out. I think that is the end of our questions. Throw up a little bit
1 hour.
Throw up a little bit of a prop there. Hey, thanks, Ron.
Appreciate it, Ron.
Enjoy the camp tomorrow, fellas. Hey, thanks, Abraham. Glad you got to have that experience. Thanks again, Abraham. This is like, have you seen that like meme where it's like, when you tweet something awesome and it's like a guy on a roof like holding up something and they're like 3 of his boys are down on the ground like, yeah. That's us right now. All seven of our viewers and the 6 people who give us we talked about this before too. I hope this thing blows up in the fall. We're going to keep grinding it out. We're going to keep getting better with the live stream and the podcasting. So thanks for those of you who did join us and watch and listen. And tomorrow, looking forward to it, man. Me and Chris are going to meet up in Lansing, finish the trip up to Big Rapids, and check out the camp at Ferris State. We'll have lots and lots of content on that throughout the rest of the week. Hopefully, we're going to do whatever we can to do that. Again, we're going to be figuring a little bit of it out as we go. But keep it locked to WolverineDigest.com for that. Chris and I will have more stuff to talk about on Friday, right? Is it? Yeah, Friday. And then, we'll see how this camp goes tomorrow. So hopefully it'll go well. Chris, I'll let you close this out today. Any last words from Mr. Breiler?
Oh, man, that's a lot of pressure.
How's the beer?
The beer is good. Oh, here's how we'll close it out. I've made a decision on my fandom.
Your team, yes.
Yes, and I think that, I can see the people are flooding in already. The fans, they're coming back. They thought it was over. Now they're
For
coming back.
for people who may not have caught it on Monday, we talked about Chris looking for a new team to root for. And
Basically,
pro teams.
right, pro team. Where it comes from is I'm a college football junkie. That's pretty much all I watch. But I'm looking for something to fill my time when college football isn't happening, and so was exploring some pro teams. I'm not really a hometown guy necessarily, but I have decided to remain true to the state of Michigan. So I am going to remain a Detroit Red Wings, Detroit Pistons, Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions fan.
Don't do it.
Because I can't, there's no justification for me to go elsewhere. There just really isn't. And then when you factor in the availability on television for me to be able to watch these things, it just makes the most sense. So
I'm curious.
I'm staying home.
I'm curious. There you go. There you go. He's going to take his talents to Detroit. I'm curious about this. I mean, you're a sports guy. You played sports growing up. Like, you're obviously into everything. How did that not happen? Like, how aren't you a fan of those already? It seems weird to me.
I don't know, man. Like, I just never got into. I think it's because, you know what? I know exactly what it is. The seasons are too damn long. So with college football, like the regular season is like it's playoffs week 1, right? Like you cannot lose a game if you have championship aspirations. So there's so much riding on every Saturday. It's not quite that way in any other sport. So you can sort of tune out during the regular season. It's like what I do with hockey. Like I do not watch any regular season hockey, but when playoff hockey is on,
it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean, there's few things that are more exciting than playoff hockey, playoff basketball, the NFL playoffs. So I love all of that. But I mean, you know, when you get into like 150 some games or 82 games, it's just too much, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm a dad. I got stuff. I got grass to cut. You know, I got kids to like play with and hang out with, and you know, just things to do.
It is tough, man. I mean, the seasons are 82 for basketball, 162 for baseball.
It's too much.
Is hockey also 160?
Hockey, yeah, I know. I think it's. I know it's over 100, right?
I feel like this is a prime example right here. I don't know how long the NHL season is. I thought it was the same as baseball. Oh, it's the same as basketball. Okay, 82 games. 82 games. So, yeah, that's a really long season, man. That's a really long season. I get where you're coming from.
So it's just been, I've always been a casual pro sports fan, but I've never really like gotten into it to like watching, you know, a Pistons game on a weeknight during the regular season. It's just if I happen to catch it, cool. If not, no big deal. Because when the playoffs come, that's when I'll tune in, assuming they've made the playoffs. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm staying home, and I can hear the cheers from Michigan fans all around and Detroit fans that are welcoming me into the fandom. So
here's a great way to close, but here's an even better way, and this is, you know, we'd be remiss if we didn't do this probably. Shout out to the baseball team. Michigan's baseball team is in the College World Series in South Bend this weekend. I was on campus earlier today, actually, up around Ann Arbor, and saw them practicing and getting ready for it. So yeah, Eric Bakich, I've had a chance to talk to him a couple of times when I was at the Wolverine. Great dude. Coach really seems to get it. His players, like Juwan, man, the players buy in for that guy, and they really want to play well for him, and they want to win. So good luck to the baseball team, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back on Friday, because I admittedly I just don't cover it that much. It's not something that, you know, we spend a lot of time diving into, but I'll look a little bit of it up. We'll talk a little bit about it on Friday, and we will see you again that day, and then shit, man, we'll see what kind of information we can get out of this camp tomorrow. We'll see what Harbaugh has to say. We'll see what kind of things the recruits are doing. We will see. Man, I hope it's better than the camp we just went to. I'll just leave it at that. So thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back on Friday.